Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I'm going to talk about first person shooters on the Switch, but this video is also going to be talking about rehashing of old games, re-releasing, that sort of thing. And Nintendo have always been king of bringing out a new platform, not really offering backward compatibility. There are a few exceptions, like the 3DS could play DS games and the Wii could play GameCube games, but it seems to be when they shift media, so when they go from cartridge to disc and then from disc to cartridge, they don't offer backward compatibility, and therefore they then have to sort of resell their older games again on new systems. And I'm not a big fan of it. It's okay, but they charge such a price for doing it. So I don't know how many times they've sold Super Mario World from the Super Nintendo and repackaged it and brought it out again. They brought it out on the Game Boy Advance, and then when things like the virtual shops and the eShops came through on different systems, it's been re-released on there. So you can get it, but you have to pay quite a bit of money, and that's Nintendo for you. But the main focus of this video is first-person shooters on the Switch. Now, I am a big fan of first-person shooters. It's some of the reason that I like the DS and I like the 3DS, but it ain't a system that is suitable for first-person shooters. Even the new 3DS with the circle pad and the second little thumbstick just don't play very well with first-person shooters. That's what my PS Vita is for. It's fantastic. And the Switch is, it's fantastic. It's perfect for first-person shooters. You've got twin sticks, twin shoulder buttons, and twin triggers, and enough horsepower to pull off a decent first-person shooter. But kind of tying back in with my first part of this video, there aren't that many new first-person shooters on the Switch. I was looking through because I'm kind of interested in the Switch. I might get one, and I just want to see what sort of games there were, and first-person shooters are my favourite genre. So I've got a list in front of me of games I've pulled out of other people's lists, so top 10 first-person shooters for the Switch, top 25 first-person shooters from the Switch, and a lot of them are the same. So we take Doom and Doom Eternal. Now, that's probably some of the most heaviest and unexpected titles to come across to the Switch, because it was released on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and Doom and Doom Eternal are fantastic. They're very heavy games. I was surprised to see them on the Switch, and I wouldn't really class that as a re-release or a rehash, because the Switch is in the same generation as the Xbox One and the PS4, so it kind of just released them on all three platforms. The Switch really was an unexpected platform to see such a heavy and mature first-person shooter. You've got Quake, and recently Quake 2. That's not really Nintendo re-releasing it or rehashing it. Quake and Quake 2 have been ported to lots of different systems, especially with Quake 2. They made a lot of significant enhancements to it, so it was nice to see that on the Switch. I'm currently playing the unofficial port on my PS Vita because I absolutely love Quake 2, and even though it's a 1997 game, I think, it still holds up. But then we get into some other games. So you've got Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. Well, that's not really a rehash either, because I think that was brought out on the PS4, so the Switch is in that same generation again. But then we can move a bit further back. So Borderlands, great games, released on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and when they brought it over to the Switch, it's called the Handsome Collection. So it's Borderlands, Borderlands 2, and Borderlands the pre-sequel. So that's not too bad. That is three games that you're buying, instead of just them porting one game across and charging you full price. You're getting three games for that price. The same with Crysis. Now, Crysis is an absolutely phenomenal game. Anyone that's into first-person shooters will know about Crysis. When it first came out, even some of the heaviest and some of the most powerful PCs struggled to run it. It was one of those games that, will it run Crysis? If your machine could run Crysis, then it was a decent machine. I think it was about 2006, 2007 when that came out. I played it on the PS3, absolutely loved it, as well as Crysis 2 and 3. And they have re-released this on the Switch, but just like Borderlands, you've got the Crysis trilogy, so you're getting all 3 games. It's probably a hefty price, but you do get 3 games for that. Metroid Prime, that is a rehash. That is Nintendo pulling up a GameCube game, rejigging it slightly and bringing it out on the Switch. BioShock trilogy, so that's BioShock, BioShock 2 and BioShock Infinite. GoldenEye 007, this is an N64 game, so that is a rehash. Mixed reviews about that. It was great on the N64, but then that was back then, sort of late 90s. They haven't really done too much. Does it hold up against modern day first-person shooters? I know they brought in local multiplayer for the Switch version, so it's been rehashed and had a few bits added to it, but it's still an N64 game that they're now bringing out and charging quite a price for. Call of Juarez Gunslinger, that I think is a PS3 era game. That's now been brought out on the Switch. It's alright. It's a little Red Dead-ish, but it's a Western first-person shooter. I know they've sort of I know they've improved the graphics and brought that out on the Switch. Then you've got things like Duke Nukem 3D, a very old game. Well, that's sort of sandwiched in between Doom and Quake. A fantastic game. Did I really need to see that on the Switch? Not entirely sure. At least with something like Duke Nukem 3D, when you buy it on the Switch, you get all of the DLC content, and you get some new levels added in. So you are getting a bit more than just an old game that's been rehashed. Turok. Now this is, and I'm pretty sure this is the original Turok. This is going way back to when I did PC gaming. So that's a very, very old game that they've brought forward to the Switch. We've got one more on there. So you've got Bulletstorm. That is a PS3 game. Fantastic game, rehashed onto the Switch. Not much has changed in that one, although you can now play as Duke Nukem, so you can play the whole game with the craziness that is Bulletstorm, with the addition of playing as Duke Nukem. So that is a quick look at first-person shooters on the Switch, and also touching on the fact that there are so many titles on the Switch that are rehashed. Even outside of the first-person shooter, Nintendo really do like to just drag old games and bring them onto the new system. The Switch is now 6-7 years old, and we haven't had a new Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a rework of Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, and I'm sure there are some titles. I think Super Mario 3D World, that was a Wii U game that's been brought back out onto the Switch with a few additions, etc. So the Switch is a great console. It isn't the most powerful, but it does still have a hefty beef with it. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle here. I don't like the whole, especially when it comes to consoles and not offering backward compatibility. All your games are then stuck on that system, and then a new system comes along, whether that be from the same company or a new company, so whether that's Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, and they bring out these games again. So there's a lot of PS3 era games here, games I played on the PS3, like the Crysis trilogy. I'm pretty sure I had Call of Juarez, Bulletstorm, and they're great, but they're stuck on the PS3. So it is nice to see them being brought forward onto more modern consoles, but it comes at a price. It's almost as if the Switch is becoming the new PS3. There's lots and lots of PS3, Xbox 360 titles that are being ported over to the Switch. Maybe that's because it's kind of almost the same power as that kind of console. The Switch is nowhere near as powerful as the PS4 and the Xbox One, so there aren't going to be many titles from that generation that go to the Switch. I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, but in two minds. I like the way that Microsoft work. There are so many Xbox 360 games that will run on an Xbox One, and there are even a good chunk of original Xbox games that will run on the 360 and the Xbox One and the Series X. They offer fantastic backward compatibility. It means that your old games don't get lost in console oblivion. Whereas people like Sony and even Nintendo themselves, they remaster games. There are a lot of PS3 era games that have been remastered on the PS4, but it comes at a cost. And the Switch seems to be no exception. Some of it is because they've gone from disc systems with the GameCube, the Wii and the Wii U, and then they've now moved to this little tiny cartridge on a Switch, so they have to somehow move those games across, and they do it at a cost. It is good to see these games on the Switch, especially first-person shooters, because it's an era that Nintendo have lacked in, because they tend to go down the more family-friendly route. So it's nice to see these first-person shooters, and there are a bunch of new first-person shooters. Don't get me wrong, all the first-person shooters on the Switch are not rehashes of older ones. There are plenty of new ones on there. I just wish when they brought these out, with the exceptions of maybe things like Borderlands where you're getting 3 games, and the Crisis Trilogy where you're also getting 3 games, where they just re-release them at a much reduced price. It would kind of give a little nod to those that have already bought it at full price on a previous system. So let me know what you think. Are you a fan of rehashing games on new consoles and charging a fortune for it? I don't care whether they remaster it, whether they up it. It is nice though when they add in new content or bundle in all of the DLCs for the same price. But let me know what you think. Are you a fan of Nintendo rejigging old titles onto new systems and charging for it? But as you've seen from this list, there are a lot of other companies that do it as well. So let me know. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.